I know, it is very touchy.
Let's focus.
I know.
That's why you're the chairman.
We'll call the meeting to order. And I don't, yes, well, then. So, this goes. That sounded like, by the way, was that, Nancy, you were talking about? You know, Rathskeller there.
No, Rathskeller is Traverse City, corner of Front and Union. Yeah. Mr. Hubble, grab a seat. Grab a chair.
Grab a chair. There's a chair?
No, why don't you grab one of those?
Okay, so, we have, on the order, we have a roll call.
Commissioner Robbins?
Yeah.
Commissioner Sotis Little?
Here.
All present.
And then, rise for the pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the minutes from the June 15th meeting. Let's take just a moment, and I haven't should have.
Your email company.
I know, that's what I said, I should have, I saw them come in.
I'm going to make a motion.
Yeah, give me just a quick second. Now your motion?
I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes of June 15th, 2022.
And then a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. So the minutes are approved. And is there anything, additions, deletions to the agenda?
Just a request, if we can move number 4 to number 1, in fairness to Mr. Hubble.
Absolutely. Then order number 1, and can we have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Mr. Ross, would you like to move to approve the agenda?
Approved.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we now have an agenda, and we don't have any public. Yes. So I think we confirm, Ziggy has public comment. Okay, and number 4. Move that to the front.
Let me just start off with you background, because Rick was not part of these discussions. You have it.
I didn't get one of those.
Well, you know Joe. So just as background, this came up, really was focused on Shergold about a decade ago, in terms of people wanted us to do something, our hands were tied from the legal perspective. We kept telling us more of a township issue, but people still put a lot of pressure onto us. And we found out that, and Joel was involved in this discussion too, because he was getting a lot of phone calls from people saying, can you do something, and so forth. And one of the things we could do is a code violation, but we're one of the few counties, and I don't know how many, I did a survey back in 2016. Most counties, building officials have the authority to issue civil fines versus criminal fines. Leelanau County has never adopted that policy or procedure, so therefore the only option have been is to go through Joe's office and actually file criminal charges. The problem we have with that, and once again, it goes on Sugarloaf, is it's a corporation. And layers of bureaucracy, how we get to find someone to file criminal charges against someone. So that time we looked at other options. And one of the options is that quite a few counties have, is the ability to give civil infractions, which is criminal fines. And Joe, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, basically. The statute, the construction code statute allows the county
board to adopt a resolution which will allow, for the governmental subdivision made by ordinance designated violations, driving section 1 2 as a municipal civil infraction, provide a civil fine for the violation. And then building code, the governmental subdivision may obtain civil fine imposed upon judge. And part of the frustration we have, and not only Sugarloaf, but other builders or somebody who's not in compliance, to charge him with a misdemeanor, and then if we have to go to trial, we have to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt. The civil infraction is just the preponderance of the evidence. It also makes sense, I think Amber as well as passed building code. People try to go out and work with people, will say, can you fix this? And they say no. Then she's stuck with, this is just a step below making a criminal charge to try to get compliance. And so it's a tool that can be used. I think it would be more effective in terms of getting enforcement. And part of the frustration, it is similar to like our marine deputies and our DNR, or somebody that doesn't have a life jacket, enough life jackets in the boat, it's a misdemeanor. You don't have a spotter for a water skier, it's a misdemeanor. And so a lot of, I think it'd be good to decriminalize some aspects of the construction code just to give Amber and her employees more latitude to do it, to enforce the code. It went before the board in 2016. It failed. There was a 4-3 vote, I think.
No, actually, it was 3-2.
3-2, pardon me, 3-2 vote.
3-2 in favor, but that time, when Chief Mikowski resigned, so we had 6 members,
Right, and so the recommendation failed.
and 1 commissioner was absent.
Yeah, it looks like Commissioner Moffitt was absent. So I just think, when Chad approached me, I just think it's a good thing to do. It gives our construction code some flexibility in how to enforce without having to go to the level of having a criminal violation. And not that we would prosecute everything to the nth degree, but some things I think it just makes more sense to give them a ticket. They don't fix it, here's your ticket. And under the statute, some of I need to clarify a little more, but some of the penalties are a daily penalty. And you don't fix it, the fines and costs accrue. But, people need to follow rules, and unless there's a financial penalty of some sort, a lot of people won't do it. So, that's.
On the back is the resolution that Leelanau, if you want.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
On that, just that, we spend so much time, I'll use the term babysitting, that when there's somebody's, I've got 4 cabins out there right now that don't have permits, that people are renting, that don't have smoke detectors. I've written the violations, they're still using them, and we're liable. I've got letters out there, hey, you need to fix this, and they're just putting them in the circular file because there's nothing's gonna happen.
Well, maybe those folks should be brought, we should bring a criminal charge against them, and should comply. Because you're right, if the place burns down and you're on notice, and then the county gets sued because they didn't enforce the construction.
Right, and we've got buildings out there right now in that situation.
I mean, that's a more of an extreme case
Right.
than somebody didn't get the proper permit to put a shed roof next to their house and didn't get a permit.
Right.
That'd be a civil infraction, I would think. But,
And 99% of those we go talk to them, they come get their.
right,
Yeah, it's
so
not.
there's other persons who
Right.
blowing it up. Well, maybe we should get a report together and submit it to my office and we'll write it.
Right.
Okay?
And I believe the county board sets the fees, right, for the civil infractions.
Right,
Yeah.
and
There is no state code.
the fine can be between $100 and $500. I guess if this committee moves forward, I'll dive in deeper and have a better analysis then we go before the full board, and we can ask questions. Well, what's the fine? What's the procedure?
And we thought if there's interest, this is the first step. As Joe said, before we get to the board, we'd have another meeting here, where we have a very specific recommendation. Because we don't have it now.
Yeah, in some of the opposition in the past, Will Bunning, we had a different building code, person, let's just say that. And there was probably some disconnect. And Will Bunning, I know part of the discussion, was afraid that our building code guy was just gonna go out and write tickets that had his budget. And that wasn't really, there was some, and so the bottom line is the resolution failed.
So what would be the process associated with it? Because you bring up an important point, Joe. Some cases definitely should go to criminal route for the safety of people. But in this case, let's say, someone built a shed without a permit. So what happens? What's the process?
Well,
We would follow our normal procedure. They get notice, everybody would get notice regardless. And then they are given 14 days to respond. After 14 days, we look at other avenues to get in contact with them. Most of the time, when they get that letter, they call right away. My bad, I don't know, or the zoning guy told me I didn't need it, what do I need to do to make it right? So it's the people that don't respond and then know about it. We've had extra communication, oh yeah, well, I'll do it, but they continue to work and don't. That's what we're looking for, the extreme cases.
Okay, so let's say it's me, and I put a building up, got no permits. You sent me a letter, I ignored you, what's the next step? That's what your question is.
The next step is we send somebody out with a stop work order and a copy of the second letter, letting them know they need to stop work until they have a permit. We'll get with our partner.
And then,
And when you do that, you just meet anybody on site or whoever is responsible for the project. Whoever is responsible for the project.
okay, so let's be following. You went to my house, you saw the building, no permit, you sent me a letter, I ignored it, you put a stop work, or notice on it. Next step.
The next step will then be good.
I mean, that's where you are. Right now, the only option is criminal.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so you want to issue a ticket, can you tell me?
I guess it would depend on the situation, and Joe's mentioned that they would be incremental, like daily.
But tell me the technical part.
So the technical part would be at that point, we would have the second letter would mention that they are now receiving a stop work order and that they may, the further inaction may result in a
Okay,
ticket.
Well, let's say I ignored it, tell me what you want to do.
The ticket would be issued.
But tell me how you ticket, tell me what that.
let me help with
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I don't know.
Yeah, that's my question.
Basically,
Yeah.
basically, we'd have.
That's what I'm asking.
We'd have some tickets printed up.
I mean, physical,
Physical tickets,
Okay.
like the law enforcement had,
Okay.
this is been printed. And they would fill it out and hand it to the person, the copy would be filed with the court.
and
There'd be 4
there'd
copies.
be a fine.
And there'd be what the violation is and what the penalty is. And that would, and then presumably, we would go to the district court and get an appearance time, date, or unless it's just a call and find out.
So your office will still be involved?
Yes.
So, now help me out, because honestly, you don't know.
No.
So, we have these tickets printed out that Amber would have authority, right?
And we would help enforce the tickets.
And you would have to it'd be a joint venture between the building official and the prosecutor.
Because if we went to court, it would be much like a speeding ticket. It would be a jury trial, it'd be in front of, presumably, we would have an initial hearing in front of the magistrate, and then a formal hearing, and then a formal hearing in front of the judge. No jury, preponderance of the evidence. And, again, there'd be an incremental daily fine attached to it to give them some incentive, financial incentive to come in compliance.
So at the point, I'm assuming then, since your office is involved too, Joe, the inspector would, after you've been through this process, you would be discussing it. So Amber would have authority and approval over, yes, we're going to do this, and at that point in time, she would contact your office
Right.
before it was issued.
Correct, I would, as we communicate in the past, I would anticipate Amber or one of the workers would bring me up to speed, or Kristen or Doug, say we had a sign one problem, ready to go to the next step. Because once they issue the ticket, once they issue the ticket, once they issue the ticket, we become involved.
Right.
So I think we want some, and I would, well, I would be, I would anticipate we would have some communication before either a criminal charge is brought, which we would have to do, or if a ticket is issued. So we're all on the same page.
It's really the same process, but you have to make a joint effort, or a joint decision with criminal or civil.
And I think when the second, right, I think when the second letter comes out, our office gets copies, so therefore the person knows we're now in the loop.
I supported this before, as you know.
Yes.
And I'm supporting it too. I think having a process well documented is exactly what's followed and a tracking procedure would be
Well,
more
if
beneficial to everybody.
you are in favor, then Joe would work with Amber, come up with a policy procedure, saying the fines, because the fines are have to be determined by the board also.
And I need to look into that further, but I generally did some cursory research yesterday. We met yesterday and the fine,
I don't think there would be any need to, it would all go through Amber. Like the field inspectors would go out and see the violations,
Yeah. Right.
document that stuff, but the actual
Yeah.
ticket process.
You would recommend, you would not have the authority.
I would take it to her. And she would-
Only the building official has the authority. Not the-
You would, okay, but do it that way. You would have to go out and issue a ticket.
Well,
she could write a ticket and have somebody else serve it based on her
I'm just trying
report.
to,
yeah.
But if she had a report,
But from a legal perspective, that would be issued
from her.
by the building official. How it's delivered
I
is.
just didn't want to.
but if we went to a hearing, we'd have to call with as a witness the actual building official that observed who made observations of the violation.
Now, would we want, if we did give tickets, in certain cases, make it like their exit ticket, they have 10 days, it's.
Sure, I mean, we can use our
Don't
discretion.
forget about the fines.
Sure, no, sure, fix it. I mean, we're trying to get compliance with people for the most part.
Right.
We basically do that now without the ticket. We say, hey,
We try to do it, but sometimes people still, we beg.
No, I mean,
That's one of those rare cases.
But I like what you're saying, that, they do comply within a set period of time.
Give them 10 days or.
It does, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, now let's say that you have engaged a builder, and you're the homeowner, being built, and the homeowner is in violation. So will notification go to the homeowner, not just the builder, so that homeowner knows, because that builder's just gonna pass his costs right along?
Yeah, because right now, let's say, Chet hired someone to put up this building. We have no knowledge that he's done that, so all of the enforcement letters go to the homeowner directly. At that point, they
I
communicate to
can
us.
tell you, like, because I've just gone through a process. I actually went through Elma Township in one of my zoning variance appeal. But when you apply, they ask you, should notification be to the homeowner or the contractor? Like, when we remodel our house, we didn't, the builder took care of everything, permits, everything. I never saw the permit and everything, but I signed off on that. So it depends on the case, on who's the legal person.
permit owner.
I think you notify both. And
That's what I
sometimes they do say, the homeowner has no clue, now they find out they're in violation, they're going to have to build and fix it, they're not going to pay.
One of the challenges we had, and it's not lately, but I used to get involved with people complaining, and usually it's the homeowner calling, saying, no, my builder's been waiting 6 weeks for a permit, and nothing's happened. I mean, you've been involved with that too. I had a classic one, a lady that I knew, her husband was unfortunately killed in an accident, and she was going to the house, and she knew me just as went to school with her, and she was so frustrated. My builder's here every day. He says he can't get a permit, they're not answering his calls, blah, blah, blah. It's been 6 weeks, he can't, just didn't sound right. So I did a little checking. She called me on Wednesday. The contractor turned in the first phase on Friday. He was busy doing a lot of jobs, he was just shuffling and waiting when in reality, his 6 weeks was 2 days that he turned it in. When the calls I get are usually like that from homeowners, they just don't know.
If we move forward with this, I'm trying to prepare for 5 other people. Your experience, how many times have you, say the last couple of years, how many times have you probably had the issue?
Maybe a dozen.
That we could have,
That we could have?
that would have been legit. 30, 40.
I'm just trying to like, so the other
Yeah.
part.
But of the 30, 40s, how many were resolved?
Yeah.
Half.
So you're looking at less than 20 a year.
Yeah, and again, there would be a lot of, there's already a lot of intercommunication on this stuff, but there would be an added level with Joe. When we get to the second level, he's getting copied, and if I don't get a response, or any tickets, but I'm gonna have a dialogue with him. Maybe it's something that maybe I don't think needs a ticket, but I'm like, what do you think I should do moving forward? I'm not getting any response from this person, but I don't feel a ticket should be issued
Yeah,
for
I
either.
think the key is that if they see on the letter it's copy of the prosecutor, then there's a chance of fines from the prosecutor. That will, most people will probably pay that, or follow up if you would take care of the issue or something.
Where I was headed was, I wanted to get like somewhat of a number because I don't want our board members to think that you guys are gonna be barring fight and tick.
Yeah.
That was a concern last time.
No.
Yeah.
And frankly, in terms of criminal cases, I think we did charge one. So that was against, I think, the previous owner of Sugarloaf, not Kowalski, but Remo or one of them. And we filed a case in district court, and just about that time, the property changed hands to Kowalski or whatever, and we dismissed the criminal case. So it's not like it's gonna overwhelm my office by doing it either. It's a great tool I have, and I've been working with them in the past, and folks there, they're not gonna be running around with tickets just issuing willy-nilly.
So we're gonna be able to fill the jail with this?
I will support that.
To follow up on your comments, Barney Place no longer works for the county.
So maybe you might want to send the homeowner also a second letter, since it has the prosecuting committee on it. So it's.
And I think the second letter says now we're failing to comply, we are now left with the option of either proceeding with a criminal charge or a civil charge, which would involve the prosecutor's office.
Well, in simple terms, if the two of you are in agreement that this needs to be further explored, we can come up with firm policies, procedures, you know, saying who will be notified, what the fines will be, we can do that.
I think
For our
that
next
makes sense
meeting
to
before
lay,
it goes to the board.
to lay it all out, and that way, a lot of the questions the board might have would be answered by that.
But it'd be nice to give the board, this is the policy, here are the procedures,
Yes,
and here are the fines.
because those are the questions that are going to get asked.
And they're legitimate questions.
So do we need a motion for you to work together, come up with plans and policies?
I say if you just pass a motion encouraging us to explore and come up with potential policy procedures.
Would you like to make that motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that, Chad and Amber will explore, you know, and Joe will, explore this and come up with a policy that we can take to the board of commissioners.
I second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, that motion is passed.
And maybe Amber could reach out to some other building departments, because they may have a policy or procedure all in place, then we don't have to reinvent it, we don't. Maybe Grand Traverse County has, or Ramsey, or somebody,
Yeah.
that would just give us a framework that would be of great assistance.
Yeah, I know when we did this research, and I forgot to turn through this up for us, we said it's pretty common. And like to find out who drafted this in 2016, we called that attorney, and he may have access to other county policies and procedures. So we'll have to start from.
And Patty's out for a doctor's appointment today, I'll have her get to our files, but I'm sure we have a file
Yeah,
from 2016 on this, and I'll dig that out too. But I think in another county construction codes department has, that are,
Benzie does have one.
okay, well, let's reach out to Benzie and see what they can provide us.
They actually deputized all the inspectors down there.
To write tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably a procedure we're gonna have to do is deputize people to write tickets to civil infractions. And as far, if it went to a criminal case, we would involve law enforcement, have them serve the process, the complaint or the summons that we report, if it's not done by them. So if you could reach out to Benzie County, that would be very helpful.
Oh,
Thank you, Joe.
Yep, we'll move forward and join this.
All right, we have a wonderful day.
You too.
You can stay the rest of the meeting if you want.
Yeah, that's true.
Really? All right. Well, we offer.
You don't have any coffee or donuts?
It's all right. Usually the chairman of the committee brings the
Oh,
donuts.
that's right, I'm falling down.
Yeah, I didn't want to mention anything, but could you put that in the record, please?
And send me a reminder, the day before. Okay, next item is 2023 budget update and review of the expenditures and revenues.
So what I
Thank you for
put
putting this together.
here, the first.
Rick, you have a- Oh,
Yeah, the first document is what I turned in for the budget worksheet this year. And I also included a report for the expenses for our department for the end of May. And then the unaudited report from last year. So you can kind of see roughly where things sit.
Now, I know we're trying to build at least a half year.
1 year,
For 1
that's
year.
the record.
For support, but this is very helpful, we can look at where we are
Let me give a background, because Rick is not the.
and look at the fee structure and see if they're going to reduce, are they good, increase, they will.
We hit a crisis mode in, was it 2008, Charlie? Were you here that time?
Well, I was working in Benzie, but
Okay.
everybody
Anyway,
crashed.
the economy crashed, people were not building, there was no revenue coming to the department. And the challenge at that time was, the county did not have a significant reserve fund, because the minute, even if everyone stops applying for permits, there's still many outstanding permits out there. So you still have to serve those people, but you have no revenue coming in. And if you don't have a reserve fund, how do you employ people? And I really hit crisis mode here in, I think, 2008, where unfortunately, every one of the inspectors had to be laid off. And then some came back as contracted employees only, and that was not a good situation. And there was a huge backlog, because everyone came back. And it took us a while to get back to the point. And the recommendation from that point forward by auditors and by other counties that do this is you need 1 year fund balance. In the worst case scenario, if the economy just crashes completely, we still have a lot of outstanding permits out there, inspections still need to take place. Some construction still going forward. We found out with COVID, when everything was shut down in March of 2020, there's virtually no permits coming in, but they were doing inspections every day for the ones that were still open, if the contractors still were working. So that's why it's a recommendation of our auditors. And we did, when I came here, I could be off a little bit, our fund balance was less than $400,000. And we didn't raise any fees or anything, we just kept, because they kind of picked out building permit. It looks like the best you can tell, Amber, our expenses are, I'll round up about $900,000 a
Yeah.
year. And your fund balance is,
Yeah.
yeah, so we're there. And the board and this committee and the prior board said, once we get to the 1 year fund balance, then we'll look at fees, potentially lower fees. So we're at that point, so now's the time to have a dialogue. We did a survey, I think before you were here, of other county fees, because it's interesting, when I look at my administrative rate, we don't have much up here anymore, but in every county, you probably, oh, your county's the highest fees everywhere in that
Yeah,
state.
everywhere.
And then you go to other county, oh, they're the highest, it just depends there, because every fee structure is different. Some counties are lower than us, some are higher, but it varies by permit by permit. So electrical permit may be X dollars, or mechanical is X dollars. But when you average it out, we were just below the average. I think we did 10 counties. We were just below the average. If you look at the total cost, So if you want to build a house, X square feet you took, and how much would the total cost be for all permits for the average house? And we were just below 50% in terms of the average. We did adjustment fees a couple of years ago, I think you were.
And the fees are, the state does provide us a baseline for the building permit fees that we get. It's updated about twice a year.
That comes from the International Pool Council.
Right.
That gets updated for the commercial rate.
Which-
The multiplier for commercial.
The multipliers for the permit fees. And so then, of course, like you say, every county then adjusts off of that.
So it's a recommendation that we then take into.
Yeah, it's a county by county decision. The last time we adjusted our fees, we did lower some fees 5 years ago, maybe, approximately.
I couldn't find anything.
Yeah, we went to the board, I can't remember when, maybe it was longer even.
Yeah, the only thing I found was,
Okay, maybe it wasn't.
yeah.
Okay, it was, yeah, because, Mr. Dempsey was here,
Oh, yeah.
and he left my second year, so probably like 2012 or 2013. And there's a couple of them that we thought were too high, and lower than that, but at that time, everyone says, we need to get to that, we were anywhere near the 1 year fund balance. So I think so now's a good time to have a discussion though.
Well, I did take a quick glance at surrounding counties, and we are lower than anybody else or the same. Most have a higher application fee, higher inspection fee. Our items on the trade permits are either the same or a little bit lower. I couldn't find much on the building because you'd have to actually call and see what they're charging. They don't post those online, but for the most part, we're actually lower than everybody else.
Could you, for our next meeting, have one of the secretaries put together a chart so we could look at that?
Yeah, like comparing.
Yeah.
I know one time, Steve, too, we called around and actually got the fees and ran it through to see what that would be for the house for the permit. We could do that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we could call Donzu Travers or even Marty up and say, hey, what's your permit fee for an 800 square foot house?
Yeah.
Just for the building.
Yeah.
So at least you can
Something
compare
to
a building
compare.
Yeah.
permit.
That was the only stuff I could find online readily, just to take a quick glance on the trade-in, we're actually lower right now.
Well, the good news is you hit your goal of 1 year fund balance.
Yeah, you did.
So, I mean, that's a positive thing.
So,
And a couple of years ago, I can't remember how long, Charlie, we converted all of our inspectors to county employees.
Yeah, and
That's impossible.
18,
Yeah.
Because we kind of transitioned one by one.
yeah, 18.
And we found actually it's more cost effective. And if there were any kind of contractors, there were issues, we could not mandate the hours they work and this and that stuff.
that's
We
pretty
looked,
good.
and from a financial standpoint, I think it has been cost effective. And there always was that stigma out there, well, they're coming, doing more inspections just because they want more money, because they get paid by inspection. And I'm not sure, I don't think any of our inspectors really did that, but that was always the, well,
That
they're,
was the first thing they would say.
yeah. So we got rid of that, and we know exactly what hours people are working, and we mandated that, because
That was a very.
when they were an independent contractor, let's say Rick, you were an independent contractor, you said, well, today I'm only gonna work 3 hours, and next week I'm only gonna work 20 hours. We couldn't mandate, you can't be an independent contractor in set hours, so,
And it might make for fancy because they pay more,
yeah.
not more.
Yeah, and so, and just what benefits everything, we had stable, and we haven't had it, the only turnover we have is inspectors when someone retires.
Yeah.
We haven't had anyone leave here to go work anywhere else.
And it also gives you, when you know what your costs are, when you hit that down here, and you're economy, you know what it is.
Right.
And it isn't where people can suddenly raise their prices because it's a market demand situation. So you kind of get around that as well.
But probably it's time that we look at that, so if you could work, how you, I mean, last time we looked at it, we picked a square foot, I can't remember.
Right.
Average square foot out for so many bedrooms and baths, and tell us what the cost is. It's hard to go permit by permit, because they do vary, but whatever you can do to put together.
But if we pick a number, you know, even 1,000 square foot, you can call somewhere and say, what's this 1,000 square foot? You know,
Yeah, and then I would say let's, since we're obviously going to meet again very soon, let's hold the vote by it and we get the charge.
And we're gonna try to look for options here pretty soon.
Yes. If that's needed, so, that gives us a chance to.
Yeah, our inspection
All your
fee,
hard work.
which we charge $50 for inspection. That's at least $20 higher, we charge 70.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know I think they tried to alter the fees. We had not had anyone call and complain about our fees in a long time. We had a lot of contractors that worked in multiple counties on the city. And that was always a perception, well, we don't gouging us because the contractors want to make more money. The inspectors want to make more money. And that is really that.
This is a question I would take, because I'm not in the legal insurance. Frequency of certain things, I'm assuming you're building a house, you need plumbing, you need electrical, but is there a greater frequency of permitting per construction component? Like, you have to go out for electrical more than you would for, say, plumbing, or for heating, or...
No, typically on a basic house, on your trades, you're gonna have a rough and a fine for electric, plumbing, mechanical. There would just be 2 inspections on each of those trades. Now, if something doesn't pass, they have to go back and see the corrections. But that's the standard. Building, that can vary because if somebody's got a full basement under their house, there's gonna be a footing, an open wall, and a foundation inspection. But if somebody's building on a slab foundation, all there's gonna be is an open slab for the insulation and vapor barrier, and then we're into framing. So depending on the house, that can vary from anywhere from 6 inspections to 9 or 10 on the building.
And the trades might vary a little bit too, depending on if they're looking for heating. They'll need to look at the underground. If they break out how they're gonna put the new service in, sometimes that's an extra inspection too. A lot of the guys try to do it at the same time as the roof. Things happen on the job site. I need power here and I'm not ready for my framing, so I need to have that looked at.
Yeah, it's variable.
Yeah.
Well, that helps, because I really didn't know how, even though we built our house, I didn't know how it all fit together.
It is a magical puzzle up to together, isn't
Mhm, it really is, that's very helpful, thank you. Okay, well then I think that brings us to our next agenda item, which is number 5, potential vehicle purchase.
That's the last item in the packet. So I gave you all a copy of the email that I got from the gentleman at Ford Dealer, and then his quote itself, so, yes, yeah, so the email is on top there. He mentioned that the cutoff for Ranger purchases was back in May, but he does have, he's got three, they're a crew cab, so they're slightly larger than the ones we have, and they would be in white, so they're a little bit more expensive. But he does have those, and he's included the price for those there. So that is the current quote I have, because otherwise they won't have anything, until September, October. They're not telling them when they would even be able to get out quotes. So
Really, Amber, are you replacing or adding?
these would be replacements, the 2 other vehicles that I'd like to replace.
So help me out, I remember Steve purchased a couple of vehicles, and we got a couple from law enforcement, right?
Yeah.
And those are at the end of their life cycle, they were used.
The law enforcement ones are gone.
Yeah, those were the first ones. So the ones you got recently replaced the law enforcement.
Yes.
But the ones now that you don't know, we have the ones that we purchased.
Yeah, we have two escapes, one's a 15, first one which I'm driving. The next one is a 16 that John Chow is driving our electrical inspector. Mine's 15, I have 171,000 miles on it. And that one's cost us some money, transmission and things. But, yeah, it's tired.
Well, and before the winter's on us, it's good to get.
You get 2 vehicles last year,
Yes.
We got them this summer.
summer.
Yeah, they were
So
good in my budget for this year.
24,000.
Yeah.
They're the ones that replaced the used ones.
Right.
Because part of that, we didn't have the vehicles, the inspectors drove their own cars.
When we were all contract, yeah.
So this, the price seems reasonable for the working next year.
And you obviously have the money in the budget.
Yeah. I just didn't add this into the worksheet, so there's a notation in there.
These here
They're not exactly the same as what we already have.
are, I mean, when you forward these, this is like,
We don't have much to choose from.
right, well, I was just looking here, I mean, not trying to nickel and dime, but, I mean, you guys, if you take it out, do you really need a total package?
I didn't. I
This
haven't
is what
seen-
he gave me is
That's
what
what they
those were
have.
already, these are in stock and they were maybe pre-ordered
Oh,
or
okay.
something, so.
That'd take $1,000
Yeah.
right there.
So I didn't ask if anything could,
Well, you're talking about for the 2023 budget, right?
yes. So if we were to be approved for the purchase of these, I don't know how that would work. If you reserve them until next year,
Well,
they're in
we're,
the order bank but are not spoken for.
Yeah.
well, we're talking about for 2023.
Yeah.
Not, there's no prices right now.
No, I just would like to get them in the budget.
So put them in the budget, we'll go through, what normally happens is, once the budget's approved in October, we actually order them, knowing they won't come till next year anyway. And we go through a state bidding process, so there could be someone else in the state at that time that has to be able to, and we get shortage with this. So you're just giving us ballpark prices.
Yeah, we didn't pick any of the options there. so.
You just
So
want.
you just need a motion to encourage the during the budgeting process.
Recommend they put them in the 23 budget. Then that'll go to the board and then we'll have a presentation.
Sounds good. So, okay, so record safety law.
I make a motion for the 23 budget, for the purchase of, 2 new,
Crew cabs.
crew cabs, what do you call for it?
I'll say right now, just with vehicles,
Yeah.
Vehicles,
just keep it generic enough.
for their fleet.
I'll second that. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
And just to note too, that the 2 Rangers we got, like, we go to class from, September to March over in Gaylord. And usually it's 2 or 3 of us going sometimes. And the Rangers we got, you can only put 2 people in. So the idea of having at least 1 crew cab so that more than 2 people could go to class or go to some training would be nice too. So,
Which wasn't anything I thought of last year, because I was strictly thinking of the inspectors was the other local job. There were a couple other things that didn't.
Yeah. And Charlie actually had a good idea this month. You know, being from Benzie County, I hate to say that, but he did actually have a good idea. Charlie's been driving from Benzie. We'd have to drive here from Benzie, pick the vehicle, and then if he had inspections in Empire or Glen Arbor area, we have to go all the way back to those areas, and come back here. So Charlie actually came up with this idea. We parked one vehicle at the road commission office in Maple City. So Charlie can drive from Benzie County to Maple City, get the vehicle, do the inspections, without having to drive all the way here. And so we're saving money from the county, but also helping him personally, and saving time. So that's what I said, I have to give him credit, yeah.
every once in a while, 10 years or so.
So we called Brandon Malone, and he's of course fine. So it really does, and in theory, you could do a couple more inspections that way too, so it would speed up the process and
Works good.
just the time driving from Maple City to here, there's no easy way to get from Maple City to here, so I had to drive here, get the vehicle and drive all the way back to Empire or Glen Arbor or whatever, so it was a very good idea.
Nice
Creative thinking.
improvement.
Is this the Southern Mental School, you know, Grayling or something?
Gaylord, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Once a month.
Would it be cheaper for us just to then take one of our vehicles and pay them for 15?
Well, except it takes so long to get that money back. That's why we don't like to do that. We don't,
Why it takes so long?
Once a month, reimbursement, not that.
It's been a hassle from our department, I know.
They do have an option.
Yeah, sometimes because I'm in Frankfurt, I do drive myself.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out how you're gonna get three people in my
We haven't figured that out yet.
We're on December 20th, so we haven't had to figure it out yet.
We'll just grab Charlie in the back.
I'll ride in the back, but I can get a good winter coat.
There we go. Fresh air.
Okay, so, and then looking at,
I included all that other stuff for the fees,
oh, okay.
fee categories. So if we're putting that aside for next time.
Well, it seems like we should do it all at once.
Yeah,
Look at all
so
the.
I just printed it all off, so you have what our trade permits are, what our current fee schedule is, the commercial chart, all this stuff here, it's all goes into it. So I'll keep it all together for.
No, that's better than we have it for next time. And that brings us through everything except, and when we, on the late fee process review, I skipped right over everything we should. It's number 4. What I just, in truth, I don't remember totally the discussion when we established the late fee. I was, as you know, a little surprised the state used in that capacity. In my mind, was thinking it would be used for, and when I say that capacity, I'm referring to the Simpson tent issue. That it was being used for something that was more important, to say. I mean, in that case, and you won the appeal, and that's good. They supported it, you were doing it on the basis of safety, but it was kind of quasi whether that was required or not. You know, that you have the right to require it, and you did. So I kind of assumed that a late fee would be more when people weren't complying on something that was a major issue, a safety issue, building, or something.
That was a safety issue.
No, it was a safety issue in the gray area. You know, the code itself says, no, you don't have to do it, but unless it's determined to be so by,
I disagree, the code did not say no.
let's not debate that.
Well, no, code was both ways, because even our attorney said it's a gray area. You could interpret it one way or the other. No, you're talking about the igloos, I think we're talking different things.
No, I'm talking about the fire extinguishers being in the tents. You know, the commercial code says you have to have them there,
And the
visible, says they have to be within a certain travel distance. That's pretty cut and dry, black and white. But I look into a 60-foot long tent and there's no fire extinguishers and there's nothing visible. That's a problem.
Yeah, I think what the issue was, I remember. And he said they were told they had to be in a specific spot.
No,
I mean, that's I think what the concern was, right?
he was never told that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it was or not, but I think that was the issue, because I had the same concern. He said he was told they had to be in a specific spot, and they were blocking where they were taking pictures and so forth.
No.
And I've been to a lot of different weddings and fire, I mean, I look now just because, and they are, you go to the nature, I just went to a wedding at the nature, what's it called? Nature?
Nature is,
It's called nature.
Yeah.
There were one spot, I went to a wedding at a barn, I think, French something, I mean, just because I look where they are now, they are all different spots. But I think the concern was Sam was telling us, and I'm not sure this is true, I'm just saying, he told us he was forced to put it in one specific spot. But the code says they have to be in a
Andrew was
visible area.
with all my conversation with him, that was never.
We have photos from the time being, there was a small sign on the fence that said it's behind the fence, it wasn't even in the tent. So they've corrected it, they've put up nice little yard stakes where you can put your wine cooler, anchor them to the ends of the tent, and then they put them right in there, it looks very cool,
Yeah.
perfect.
But based on Sam's story, I'm not saying it was accurate, if he was accurate, I would agree with him that that is a gray area. Because it says it has to be, and you brought the code, it has to be, it's just visible or within so many feet.
Yeah.
It was the igloos I was referring to.
Yeah, we got
Okay.
sidetracked.
Yeah,
I know
okay.
where you're
Yeah.
going.
But in that respect, you agree, there's no specific code that says it has to be this spot. It has to
Right.
be visible and within so many feet and.
Yeah, and as an inspector, if I walk into the tent, I should be able to stand there and find a fire extinguisher.
And I, as a guest, should be able to walk in the tent and see them, right?
Yes, because where they were, in a moment of panic, you could not even read the sign. You could read kitchen and the arrow, and the other arrow pointing to the bathroom, but underneath that, very tiny, was a sticker that said fire extinguisher
See, that's
behind the
a,
fence. So that's where.
that's a different scenario.
Yes,
And they actually complied and,
yes,
Yeah, they fixed it.
which is good.
yeah.
And that's the way I see things work. It's, there was a health department meeting recently, their food inspector. It was interesting, he has the ability to do fines and make fines and this kind of thing, and he took. And he said, I want people to work with me. We're a service organization, and if I punish people, when it's something that's more minor, he said, well, and I know that you worked hard to make the public safety a friendly place. It started with Paul, even including the coffee. I know this, but I mean, I think we are a service oriented. We want to make it easier for people to comply. And yes, Sam was clearly, he admitted that he didn't get that quoted at first, when you sent his letters, but I'm just thinking, late fees and this kind of thing, you know, did we put any process around when we use that? I don't really remember.
I don't think that anything was ever put in that. I think it was just the wording for when it would be used. We have a lot of people that put it on the application and tell them we don't, it's not for that purpose. In the case with Sam, it was more than the letters, which led me to feel that at that point, I needed some incentive for him to comply. I had called him twice, the staff had called him with the emails. At that point, it's gone a month and it's up, it is commercial, it's just an igloo. It is commercial, it's public
When,
safety. I don't want to get us in a situation where, worst case, something happens, and there was no permit to cover it, and now the fallback is on us because it wasn't.
When Sam and Amber and I met prior to the committee meeting, he admitted that he did not respond to any emails or phone calls, and he said if he even responded, I was there, you went to him.
I would not have done that, because I do that the same with anybody. It's the same with any violation. But everybody's forewarned, it's in the letter, but that doesn't mean it's gonna happen. It says may. So I always do my best to work with someone before we get to that point. They're given ample forewarnings that, hey, we're getting to the point where might is gonna become will. If you can't get me something or communicate, I'm working on it, I'm waiting on X, Y, Z, or, there just has to be a dialogue.
So in the past year, how many late fines have been issued?
Can I interject here with that? It's not really a late fine.
Yeah, but how many times have you used it? And it's pretty small.
Maybe 10 to 20. It really is.
I mean, how does it actually were charged?
Yeah, 10 to 20 people.
And the situations were like Sam's,
Not necessarily like Sam, it would be like that where there's no communication, or it's an extreme situation where they received a letter, they talked to us, told us one thing, and then continued the construction anyway.
that's, I
Original-
thought they were going to issue.
Yes. So it's a combination of the situation with Sam where I have absolutely no communication back, or you had the dialogue, you tell me one thing, and doing something different.
Does this say, one-time use for your inspection on these places?
Yeah, and so it wasn't the first year he used tents. So he was very aware that he needed the permits. He was very aware of the process, and he ignored to communicate with us. He didn't communicate with
The
us.
tents he's familiar with, igloos, this was his first year with the igloos, so I wasn't surprised that he didn't know that. But the issue that became when he did know and put up the second one, that's when
But, the fire department did.
Now, they don't have any permitting authority. They have a company, the inspectors, for that site inspection. They're looking at most of the same things.
They
that
show
they're
up
also-
about 50% of the time. We tell them we're gonna be there, we try to set up the time. And typically, about 50% of the time, they don't show.
There would have to, because we checked on that, the fire departments don't have the legal authority. The chiefs would have to get their local jurisdiction to give them that authority. They talked about that at first,
Yeah,
but the chiefs don't want to go back to, they would prefer that it be done this way.
yeah.
So it sounds like Sam was almost in the normal, but most of the time it's where I thought we would do it for, where people were ignoring and proceeding with something that was not appropriate, could be dangerous, could be a lot of things, they were ignoring you.
The few that I know about were pretty black and white.
Yeah, but you're using it sounds like you're using your good sense of judgment.
Yeah, because, I mean, 150, is just a lot of people, it's not a lot, but to others, it is a great deal. And I'm aware of that, and I'm not going to assess the fee, as long as there's open communication, and we know, each of us know what the other needs to do to resolve the issue.
And maybe, on those, like the sand type issues. Wish we could call it, a minor issue, where it's good for them to comply and they should and need to. But it's not like they're building a home, there's something major, they're not, when you said stop, you need to fix this, they haven't, and how to continue to build. That's a totally different, more dangerous situation. But on the others, maybe you give the option of, if they comply, and you issue the fine and then they comply within a reasonable, time frame, you say, okay, we comply, we'll go the issue, we'll go for the fine. Because I can see where with small businesses like that.
The problem is with that we've spent time, I've been out there once, twice, or 3 times. I've spent the time and the fuel to go out there and check the site. So,
Well, we could do something like,
But really, she does have that authority.
it could be something like we talked about with Joe here, where we have to find and assess, but it can be rated.
Yeah.
That's right.
Respond within X amount of
And you
days.
do have that authority. That doesn't need board action. or anything.
No, that would be something.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like you're.
I think the
Judgment, yes.
problem with Sam was, and when we met with him, he was very professional, so, and I appreciate that. But he did admit that he did not respond to any phone calls or emails. And the temp policy has not changed, and he's been through it year after year, so there's nothing unique about the temp this year.
No, the tent thing, like the igloo.
The igloo is a gray area.
No, well, it's new this year.
Yeah, and it's great. And that is where the code truly is.
Yeah, yeah.
And we got that resolved through
I think Amber's using good judgment. And, and I think the idea of doing a waiver that she's considering is something good to put in for minor kinds of things. So that makes sense. Thank you. Well, they don't know. Okay, so that brings us to number 5, 6. Any other issues? Covered what we need to.
I would suggest we not set next meeting date, let's give Amber a chance to work with Joe, come up with a proper process and procedures, policy, and look at the fees, and then when we do, we'll contact the 2 weeks set the meeting date.
I think that sounds good. And let's just do it before we do Amber's budget.
Yeah, it should be that long, but hate to set date, because everyone's busy right now, and so let's set date after you and Joe have a firm process. I mean, we have the policy, we have the resolution that needs to be
Yeah,
passed
I need
legally,
to-
it's just the process, and the fees.
Yeah, I need to do some research on that end of things, and also
does that mean
these other
the
fees.
building department jet skis are off the budget?
Oh, we're still working on that.
Amber, is there anything you need from us?
I don't think so, and the only thing that's kind of bubbling on the back burner is the thought of potentially hiring someone specifically for planning review. I don't have, it's just a very vague thought, because I'm really conscious of the budget and where we're at with the economy. I do not want to bring another person on staff that then would have to be laid off, so it's kind of turning around there, just a
Well,
thought.
as background, that's kind of what Amber was doing prior to her promotion.
Yes,
When
I
you plan our
remember.
use.
Yes, I remember you were. You're probably trying to react against keeping things moving.
Yeah, right now, Charlie and John kind of split that. I'm still doing an element of plan review, but as things like this crop up, and there's other things that really haven't been addressed in a long time that I need to be able to dive into, it's being able to turn that over, split it into different areas, so it's just a thought.
I think we're still living in a post-pandemic economy.
Yeah,
So it's difficult what's going to happen, just the price of lumber, materials, everything is so up and down. You're right, long-term it makes sense, but
I don't know.
now's not the time
No.
to, and
it's just something that turns around in my mind every now and then, but I don't want to bring anything before you guys yet, because again, I don't want to put something in place, get that in the budget, and then something happen and have to get that person off.
Okay. Any other comments?
I'm just gonna think of the budget here. Where are you at right now? Because
We're going into stuff.
Yeah.
With their fuel.
The main report shows you that. I don't have a report yet from June, but as of May, I was over 82%. So I would imagine now June, I'm probably.
No, I want to make sure that.
I don't know that I have enough in there.
12,000, yeah, I'm worried that that might be low.
Yeah, I think it's on the low end too.
Well, the good thing is, because they're an independent fund, they have fund balance, and then obviously you have money there, so we're not gonna stop doing inspections, right?
I could put the bicycle in the back of the truck, I guess.
We can try those electronic scooters.
Oh,
Just a scooter, because I could see.
just a scooter for.
Yeah, you see that on the front page of the paper.
So, any other comments? Board member comments? Any other comments? Well, thank you for all your work on this and for coming with preparation, research, good suggestions. So we'll pick up where we left off at the next meeting, and I think with that, we're adjourned.
Thanks.